A flat screen can give you 4,000 pixels of clinical perfection, but it can never make you feel the breath of the artist who painted it. In the mid-80s, the original video animation boom didn't just give us cyberpunk masterpieces. It handed painting brushes directly to masters of atmosphere. Look at the concrete in Neo Tokyo. That isn't a digital vector texture pulled from a software library. That is actual gouache and watercolor pigment soaked into heavy cotton paper. When light hits a physical pigment grain, it scatters in ways computer algorithms still struggle to convincingly fake. Modern digital workflows are ruthlessly clean. Every line is mathematically precise. Yet, human eyes evolved to read physical imperfections as depth markers. Microscopic bleed in a watercolor wash tells the brain, this space is real. This room has air. Let's put them side by side. On the left, a crisp 4K digital skybox. On the right, Studio Pierrot or AIC laying down layers of opaque poster color over textured board. The digital image tells you where things are. The analog painting makes you feel trapped inside the weather. Back in 1985, time was money, but cell setups were treated like gallery canvases. Background artists like Hiroshi Ohno weren't just filling space behind characters, they were building entire universes. Every brushstroke was a gamble, because you couldn't press Command-Z on a physical sheet of watercolor paper. If a wash pooled incorrectly, you painted over it or started the entire frame from scratch. That inherent risk bred a hyper-focused intentionality into every single frame. Fast forward to today, and the industry has largely abandoned physical paint for digital layers. Efficiency won out, schedules tightened, and studios needed backgrounds rendered in hours instead of days. But something vital slipped through the digital cracks along the way. That sterile perfection triggered an unexpected counter-movement across underground studios. Meet the modern indie animators and background painters trying desperately to reverse engineer analog texture. They are mixing custom Photoshop brushes, scanning real watercolor paper, and writing code to simulate pigment bleed. Why go through all that trouble if digital tools are faster? Because viewers can subconsciously spot a lazy gradient from a mile away. When a scene features genuine tactile chaos, the brain stops looking at pixels and starts believing the fiction. The '85 OVA boom proved that background art isn't just set dressing, it is the emotional anchor of the entire narrative. As we watch modern creators fight to bring paper grain back to life, one thing becomes abundantly clear. The future of animation texture is hidden directly inside its painted past. To understand why these backgrounds look like museum pieces, you have to look at the money. The Japanese bubble era wasn't just about real estate, it was an explosion of venture capital into the home video market. Studios suddenly had the budget to bypass the restrictive constraints of television broadcast standards. This was the birth of the Paint House, specialized studios dedicated purely to the art of the background. Inside, the hierarchy was rigid, starting with the Bijutsu Kontoku, or background director. They were the architects of light, deciding exactly how a neon sign would bleed into a rainy street. Below them, the painters worked in rows, surrounded by the smell of poster color and turpentine. These weren't just standard brushes, they were high-end sable hair tools capable of holding incredible amounts of pigment. The drafting tables were the front lines of the bubble era's creative output. Each desk was a chaotic ecosystem of jars, water cups, and color palettes. They used poster color, a medium that dries matte and opaque, allowing for vibrant, flat layers that pop on screen. This medium was unforgiving. Once a layer was down, you couldn't undo it. But that finality gave the work a weight that digital layers simply lack. The sheer number of background plates required for a single OVA was staggering. Artists would spend days on a single master background that might only appear for 3 seconds. It was an unsustainable pace, but it created a golden age of visual density. Every desk was a testament to the sheer physical labor of the craft. The lighting in these studios was often harsh, yet the work produced was incredibly soft and organic. They were mastering the art of the atmospheric perspective before it was a digital setting. You can see it in how the distant buildings fade into a hazy, dreamlike blue. That wasn't a blur tool. That was a carefully applied wash of diluted pigment. The bubble era provided the time to get it right, every single time. When the bubble burst, the budgets vanished, and the paint houses began to close. But the legacy of those artists lives on in every frame of the classic OVAs. They didn't just paint backgrounds, they painted the very air of their worlds, and that is why we are still looking at them today. The studio ecosystem was a perfect storm of capital and craftsmanship. It was a moment in history that will likely never be repeated, but the techniques they pioneered remain the gold standard for immersion. And the search for that perfect texture continues. It wasn't just artistic talent. It was a masterclass in material science. The foundation was heavyweight cotton watercolor paper, often Arches or Saunders Waterford. To keep that paper perfectly flat while wet, artists meticulously stretched it onto wooden boards. Once secured, the real chemistry began, the marriage of gouache and transparent watercolor. This hybrid approach allowed for hyper-specific atmospheric density. To capture the decay of a cyberpunk slum, they used wet-on-wet bleeding. Pigments were allowed to migrate naturally, creating organic textures that computers struggle to replicate. For those iconic neon reflections, they employed salt texturing. Sprinkling salt onto wet paint pulls the pigment away, leaving starburst patterns. Masking fluid was the secret weapon for maintaining sharp lines amidst the chaos. It created a barrier that allowed for complex, layered compositions. And when they needed to add grit, they used physical razor blades, Carefully scraping the surface of the dried paint revealed the white paper underneath. It was a violent subtractive process that created the most realistic highlights. Humidity was captured by varying the water content in the brushstrokes. Every single choice was a calculated risk against the clock. The results were nothing short of alchemy. They weren't just following a recipe, they were inventing new ways to see. Every piece of paper was a battlefield, and the survivors of that battle are the backgrounds we still adore. It was a craft that demanded absolute devotion, a devotion that translated directly into the viewer's experience. You don't just see the background, you feel the weight of it. That is the power of physical media in a digital world. It's a reminder of what happens when art is treated as a physical act.